Hi guys, it's Jen here. I'm getting ready to make my macaroni and cheese and I wanted to share the recipe with you. Just a warning, this is not a light recipe by any stretch of the imagination. It has a lot of cheese, it has some butter, it even has bacon on top. So it's so good. The last time I made it was for my husband's birthday and today is my birthday. So we just have it every once in a while. It's not a once a month thing, but it is really good. My whole family loves this macaroni and cheese. And I've watched different people make macaroni and cheese on TV and kind of came up with this macaroni and cheese over the last few years, and it is good, but it is not a low-fat macaroni and cheese. So I'm going to show you what goes into the macaroni and cheese before I get started. So you will need some all-purpose flour. You're going to need milk, some butter, about 3.5 tablespoons of butter, Gruyere cheese, sharp cheddar cheese, some Parmesan and a Romano, or you could just use regular Parmesan if that's what you have. And then you'll also need some pasta. I like to use this, I don't know how to pronounce that and I don't want to butcher it, so this is like corkscrew pasta. Hopefully that you can see it well. It has little ridges in it, so it really helps the noodles not to get really mushy. So I have that. And then the spices are salt and pepper, a little bit of nutmeg. Oh, I'm sorry, I actually grabbed the dry mustard. So a little bit of nutmeg, a little bit of ground mustard, and a little bit of cayenne. It isn't spicy. You can definitely leave this out if you don't like any spice at all. I just put a little bit and it gives it a really good flavor. And then on top, I sprinkle panko breadcrumbs that are mixed with butter and a little bit of parsley. And then I add bacon. So you'll need about 8 strips of bacon. Okay, first I'm going to cook my bacon just so that that's done and I don't need to think about that while I'm making the cheese sauce and everything else. So if you don't know about this, I'm sure a lot of you do, but you can bake your bacon in the oven. What you do is just lay it on a cookie sheet. Usually they say to put it on aluminum foil. I don't like to cook with aluminum foil if I can get away with it. So I just sprayed my pan with olive oil spray and I haven't really had a problem with the bacon sticking if you want to use that, but you can definitely use aluminum foil. So you just lay your bacon out on a cookie sheet, put it in a cold oven, and then heat up your oven to 350. It usually takes about 8 to 10 minutes and your bacon will get nice and crispy. You can definitely make it in a skillet on the stovetop, but I like to bake it because the grease doesn't splatter and I can just pop it in there and do other things while the bacon is cooking. So I'm going to do that. Next, you're going to want to boil your water for your pasta, and you can get your pasta all cooked ahead of time because it's going to get mixed in with the cheese sauce anyway, and that'll just be one less thing that you need to think about while you're making your cheese sauce. Okay, so my bacon is cooked and I placed that on a paper towel to drain the grease and let it cool, and I boiled my pasta and drained it. Now I'm going to start on my sauce. So you're going to need 2 tablespoons of butter. The other 1.5 tablespoons is for the breadcrumbs. So just 2 tablespoons of butter, and you're going to melt that. Okay, once your butter is melted, you're going to whisk in 1/4 cup of flour until it's like the texture of sand. Okay, sorry, it's hard to whisk and hold the camera and make sure things don't get lumpy. So I had my 2 tablespoons of butter that I melted, and then I added 1/4 cup of flour and whisked that together on low heat until it was like the texture of wet sand would be the best way to describe it. And then I added 2.5 cups. And you're just going to whisk that in and make sure it's nice and smooth so your flour is all mixed in. And then you're going to add your seasoning. You're going to want to season your sauce really well, and you can always taste it and add more. So as you can see, I put a good amount of fresh ground pepper. Of course, you don't want to add too much pepper, but this is how much I added. You know, a good amount. And then I probably put in about 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and definitely taste it, and you can always add more. Then you're going to use some dry mustard. I use about 1 teaspoon of dry mustard. And then you're going to add a sprinkle of nutmeg. And depending on your taste, you're going to want to add a sprinkle of cayenne pepper. You can always add more of this, and it's very spicy. This, like I said, this macaroni and cheese is not spicy, but the cayenne pepper gives it a nice flavor. You're just going to want to whisk that in really well. And then you're going to add your cheese. So I have about 1.5 cups of the Gruyere cheese that I grated. I have 1.5 cups of the sharp cheddar and 1/4 cup of the Parmesan. The measurements do not have to be exact. It's very cheesy and yummy. I've used the smoked Gruyere before, which is really good. So if you like smoked Gruyere, it gives it a yummy smoky flavor, and my family liked that too. So you can definitely use that. So I'm going to add my cheese and whisk it in. Okay, I have my cheese, and you're just going to keep stirring it over low heat, and it'll get nice and creamy, and the cheese will all melt. It takes a few minutes. Whoops, my pan keeps moving. So just keep stirring it around, and then once this is all melted, give it a taste and see if you need to adjust your seasonings, if you want a little more of any of the spices. Okay, so my cheese is melting, and I turned up the heat to medium just so the cheese sauce will start to thicken up a little bit. Which it's starting to do. It'll get nice and creamy. Okay, this is the consistency that you're looking for. So it'll be nice and creamy. It won't be super thick, but it definitely won't be thin. And I'm going to add my pasta. Okay, I mixed all of my pasta in, and I still have my oven on at 350 so that I can bake my macaroni and cheese. So I'll show you what to do next. I added my macaroni and cheese to a 13x9 baking dish that I sprayed with olive oil spray. Make sure you spray your pan or grease it so that your macaroni and cheese doesn't stick. Also, if you start adding your pasta to your cheese sauce, and you like your macaroni and cheese a little more creamy, you don't have to add all the pasta. I usually add the whole box, but if you want it a little more creamy, you don't have to add all the pasta. So that's just a little tip. And I'm going to show you how to do the panko breadcrumbs next. Okay, for the panko breadcrumbs, you are going to need 1.5 cups of the panko breadcrumbs, about 1 tablespoon of dried parsley, and then your 1.5 cups of butter melted. And you're just going to mix that together. Okay, this is what your breadcrumbs will look like. And then you're going to sprinkle them over the top. Okay, then your macaroni and cheese will go into the oven at 350 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes. And after it's done, that's when you put your bacon on top. Okay, this is what your macaroni and cheese will look like when you pull it out of the oven. The breadcrumbs will start to get a little bit golden brown with bacon on top. Give you a good look of that yumminess.